I want to now bring in News Nation contributor Denise Gitsham, former Republican congressional candidate. Denise, good morning to you. Thanks for hopping on. I'm just curious what the pulse is of most Republicans on this, not just the loudest ones. I mean, if you're President Trump and you have the DOJ saying his deportation was a mistake, the Supreme Court asking you to facilitate his return, is this the hill to die on if you're the president?
Yeah, the GOP is firmly behind President Trump, as is most of America on the issue of immigration. If you look at the most recent polls that were done on Trump in regards specifically to the issue of immigration, just over the last few days, America is still largely with him in a majority. I think it's 53% of Americans are still for him. But the base of the Republican Party, which is what you're asking for, is solidly behind him. They have not moved at all. They are grateful to see that the president is actually doing something to deport a man that two Democratic immigration judges determined was an MS-13 gang member, and we're getting ready to deport in 2019, but nobody had the political will to actually do it. So this is to people like me in the GOP, this is proof that President Trump is following through on the promises he campaigned on, that we look to him for leadership on.
Do you worry at all that, maybe Republicans, maybe the White House wins this battle, but they lose the war in the end when it comes to immigration and deportation, or is that not of concern, Denise?
Well, I just think politically the optics are really bad for Democrats on this issue. As you saw in that White House press release or press conference yesterday, when you have Rachel Morin's mother coming out to talk about her murder, when you have the facts about this man, Garcia, and what an awful human he was as a domestic abuser and somebody who actually was, again, in fact, determined to be an MS-13 gang member by two immigration judges. What is there to argue about? Is this really the hill Democrats want to die on, would be my question to them. I think in a PR war, President Trump always wins. He knows how to set the stage. I think this is actually a trap set for Democrats to go after, this man, to make him the poster boy of their cause, which fell flat on its face when we saw the facts. Like, he came here illegally through a Texas desert, not even through a port of entry, was pulled over 5 times, and you heard all the rest in that press conference. This is not the guy you want to be holding up as your model citizen, right?
Let me play some sound from you. Journalist and author Bill O'Reilly telling Cuomo that the White House should obey the Supreme Court for what he calls a practical reason. This is what he had to say about it.
The Trump administration is going to need the Supreme Court because they're sued 200 times now. You don't want to alienate a body that has power over you.
Denise, your response to that, and do you agree with Bill?
Well, thankfully, the Supreme Court is full of independent justices who actually just go after the law. They're not there to counter a political, move by a president or Congress or anybody else. That's really their job, is to be apolitical. I understand that in reality, that's not always the case, but irritating the Supreme Court shouldn't actually affect the outcome of their decisions. And so I think the president has to do what he was elected to do, which is to protect our country from really bad people like this man. Again, proven by 2 immigration judges to be an MS-13 gang member, and do what they think is their prerogative to protect our nation.
I know that the DOJ came forward with new evidence saying that Kilmar Ábrego García was wearing the Chicago Bulls hats, which is an indicator that he's in good standing with MS-13. What do you think about that, so-called evidence, Denise? And is that, the X factor that Republicans were really hoping for when it comes to evidence against this guy?
There was a lot more than just what he was wearing to prove that he was an MS-13 member. And I'm not an immigration judge. I'm not somebody who deals with the immigration court. But I will say that if 2 democratically appointed immigration judges have affirmed that he should be deported, which was their determination in 2019, that's what they started to do until they thought they were concerned for his life because of a rival gang and potentially killing him or his family because of his gang affiliation. I mean, how much more circumstantial evidence do we need? That is the basis upon which they made their determinations, not just based on what he wore. Yeah. So, again, I'm not the judge that makes these decisions, but I do trust that our immigration judges, especially those on the left, are going to err on the side of caution in regards to determining someone's gang affiliation.
Well, this is the story that keeps on growing, new legs, new chapters by the day. Denise Gitsham, always a pleasure. Thank you for hopping on, my friend.
Thanks for having me on, Marky. Have a good day.
Talk to you next time.